When I was a younger teacher, you might say, I ran a elementary school, and it was founded with the principles of living, kind of using the Bible, you might say, using Old Testament and New Testament stories to sort of educate children. And so one of the attributes you had to have to work in the school was you had to be a good storyteller. You had to be able to tell stories, paint a picture that's not invisible to see. And I kept, as I was preparing for this moment to do this, I was realizing, how difficult it is if we just show you pictures. I mean, we could have run out a big board with pictures, handed it around you, and you would have said, oh, that's nice. It would have been about that fast. You would have not been too interested, and then we wouldn't have been that interested in doing it. But I call these guys my band of brothers. So you want to step up here, boys? Come on. Step up. Turn around. You got to turn around. Come on. I'm going to swear that we have evidence that we did not, except for the Bushbacher family, I did not know these guys at all. And yet now we are like brothers. And I'll tell you, I'm going to share some of the process of how that happened. And I'll try to paint a picture so at least it will be somewhat exciting for you. And then they're going to tell their stories a little bit here and there. And then I'll finish it up. So without further ado, man, have a seat. Mount Athos is almost like a magic word in the Orthodox Church. It's one of the holiest places that ever existed in this world. It's called like heaven on earth. And, it's like I've been to Mount Athos 3 times now in my life. I went twice with my kids, and then this last time I went with this band of brothers here, these great men who were so great on this trip. It's like you think, pilgrimage, it sounds all sweet. The tour guides say, oh yeah, come on a pilgrimage. You think you're walking down Main Street or something. But that's not what Mount Athos is like. Not at all like that. It's rugged terrain. It's rugged walking. It's uphill mostly, but it's just a little downhill once in a while. I always say it's like 5 miles uphill and 5 miles uphill. And then there might be a pause in the middle, but it was a lot of uphill climbing. And not just little, meandering kind of uphills, like steep uphills. And, when I was in my 40s and 50s and I went to Mount Athos, I was like, yeah, that was pretty cool. Good run, go up that hill. But this time when I went to Mount Athos, I'm older. I actually had to realize that I'm 74. Not that that's old. I mean, I'm young still, actually. But this holy mountain was first discovered by the Mother of God and St. John the theologian. They were going to visit Lazarus, who was in Cyprus, and a storm blew them off course, and they landed on Mount Athos. And the Mother of God asked Jesus Christ to bless this place for men, that they could have a place that was set aside for them that would be undistracted worship. And so since that time, really it's only been men that have ever lived there, but the first monastery that was set up by St. Athanasius, who in 979 established a beachhead, you might say, in Mount Athos, where he developed where the monastery, the Great Lavra, exists even to this day. And just as one little note, I was there in 2003 for his feast day of St. Athanasius, and I will tell you that the vigil went from 8 o'clock at night to 2 p.m. the next day, and then they did liturgy after that. So it was like the longest service, I think, in the history of services that I've ever been to, besides maybe when they elevated St. Sebastian or something like that. That was pretty long. So anyway, this land, Agios Oros, as it's called in Greek, became, renowned. And so men were attracted to this. Men who became monastics, became abbots, became, you name it, they became it. It was holy, holy ground. And so on Mount Athos, they actually have rule that there can only be 20 monasteries. And then anything else has to be a skete. Well, what is the difference between a monastery and a skete? I'll tell you. A monastery has walls, and it has an entrance, and it has a door that locks. Sketes are more open. There can be a lot of sketes, but there can't be a lot more than 20 monasteries. So we actually visited almost every one of those 20 monasteries. I think there's hardly any that was left out of our trip. We may have spent 10 minutes in a couple of them, or walked right by them, you might say, or walked through them and around and out, but a lot of walking, as I was saying. But it was really it's really special. So when you're going to go to Mount Athos, you have to go to Orinopolis, which is a coastal city that goes out to the peninsula, the northernmost peninsula called Agios Oros, or Mount Athos. And there's actually a place where women can't go beyond a certain point on that. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but I do know there is that place. And so you get on first off, you have to get in line. So we arrived, had about 2 hours sleep. I mean, maybe. And then we had to repack all our stuff. We had to get in line at 4:30 in the morning and stand there until 6:30 or 7. Then they finally let you in, because there's a lineup that goes up the block down the road of getting on that boat. But when you finally get through and they stamp you, they look at you, they go like that. They're kind of suspicious, and you get on the boat. What a relief! What a relief it was to get on that boat. So we were going to ride for an hour or so, and so we got on the boat. I think we did something wrong, but anyway, I think we kept messing up a lot. But just to say, we got in the wrong line, or we went ahead of where we were supposed to be, and they had to come back around and get our tickets or something. But anyway, we did get on the boat, and that took a lot of work to get on the boat. And so I just want to say that mostly when you go to Mount Athos, you can get a 4-day pass. When I went in 2003 and 2006, because I knew the abbot of a monastery, I went for a month. So that was a different kind of an experience. This was an experience where a bunch of guys who didn't know each other at all, except kind of, but we were guided by one thing, is we wanted to have an experience with God. We went on that trip not to have a good time, not to, drink beer or something. We went on that trip for one purpose, and that was to have an intimate experience with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. It kind of chokes me up to think about it. But that's the only reason we went. And all the money spent would have been a waste of money if we had not gone with that purpose and intent. And to my blessedness, to God blessing me with these men who that are here, and then some that aren't here as well. They live elsewhere. But they blessed me with the opportunity to visit something I thought I wouldn't see again. I didn't really think I'd ever go back to Mount Athos, but about 6 or 8 months before this trip, I got a call from my old friend Mark here, and Bushbacher, and he said, "Hey, would you like to go to Mount Athos?" I said, "Oh, sure, I'd love to go to Mount Athos." I said, "Can't afford it. Sorry, Mark." And he goes, "Well," and then he called me back about an hour later, said, "Well, if I pay for it, will you go?" And I said, my wife said, she heard it on the phone. She said, "Yes, he'll go. Yes, he'll go." And so, again, I didn't realize when I went there 20 years before that those hills were so steep. You just have no idea how steep those hills are, but they are a challenge unto themselves. But we got off the boat. There's various places where the boat stops. And we got off of the boat to go to Hilandar Monastery. Hilandar Monastery, if you don't know, is a Serbian monastery, and it's the place where the icon of the three hands icon is. The three hands icon is an icon of the Mother of God with the hand of John of Damascus in it. And the story about that icon, it's an incredible story. St. John was told he was a traitor, some kind of enemy of the state, and they cut off his hand. And when they cut off his hand, he asked the Mother of God to bless him. And so she did, and his hand reattached itself. And then the icon he had put on, this icon of Mother of God, the third hand, his hand at the base of it, in silver. And so at that monastery, there's a place where the abbess sits, where the abbot would sit. But in that monastery, only she, Mother of God, that three hands icon, is the abbess of that monastery and has been forever, as long as it's been there. And so we had a chance to actually go into that monastery, because that was the first stop on our trek as we walked around Hilandar Monastery and saw the beautiful icons and all the paintings. I mean, it reached up to heaven. I'm telling you, the iconography is just so profound. And so we were like staring upward all the time. But then we come to this place where the abbess is, and what? We come to the place where the abbess is, and we see that icon, and it just, it's just moving. It's moving to actually venerate this incredible icon that's been around for so long. And so many saints have been blessed by it and by her. And that's how we felt. We felt so blessed by that monastery and our visit there and all the thats. And, meantime, we did have a bus, a little mini bus, well, not too small, but we had quite a few guys moving up and down, but pretty tight fit, all in all. Some were like sitting on the floor, some were standing up, but you would go over these roads that would bump and bump and bump. I mean, you could hit your head on the ceiling. It was so bumpy. And so whenever we got to a place, it was like, all right, we can get out. Then we're going to walk. And then we would walk whatever we would walk. But it was really, really something. I can't give a full picture of what it's like, but it's one of the most beautiful Orthodox churches I've ever been in. And to be there with that icon and to receive the blessing from her, Mother of God. And it's one thing you realize when you're on Mount Athos. You realize that she is the gardener. This is her garden, and she is the chief gardener of that place. It is what it is. It's her place, and she's present there in a way that you don't feel it elsewhere. I mean, she's not omnipotent, so therefore she's there and she's present, and you feel her blessing, and and other things as well. Like I said, it's not all just one happy joyride, because there are things that happen, things occur. I'll give you an example. When a priest goes to Mount Athos, and you say, like for me, I have this fancy cross. They ask you not to wear them on Mount Athos, because the monks will then, you'll have it kind of puts them in a bad position. So I had a wooden cross. I thought that would count. That wouldn't count so much as a pectoral cross, but it is a pectoral cross. So after like one day, it disappeared. It disappeared. I mean, I have no idea where it was. I emptied out my suitcase. I emptied out everything, and I looked, and I said, okay, well, I guess I didn't need to wear that cross after all, did I? And well, anyway, we went the entire time there, and as we were packing up to leave, I looked under a bag, and it came flying out of this bag. I hit the floor even, and I was I said, I'm looking at it going, and I asked Leo, Leo, did you see that cross before? He goes, nope, we looked in there, wasn't there. I asked the deacon here, I said, you looked and you saw it, you didn't see a cross. No, we didn't see a cross, but we saw a cross then. And it was when we were leaving Mount Athos. I said, okay, I get the picture now. Don't wear the cross. And so, like I said, she's a guardian of that place. Mother of God, she's a real guardian. So I'll tell you about one other. I'm going to turn it over to these guys here in a minute to give a few of their stories. This story I'm going to tell you is not some big miraculous thing necessarily. It was kind of miraculous to me. In 2006, when I went to Mount Athos with my two sons, we met the monk who was working on the chapel for it is truly meat, the truly meat icon. And so he was working on the place where they're going to put it and the whole thing, and he was building it. This was in 2006, or rebuilding it. And he showed me the icon. He showed us the icon. We got to venerate it at that time in '06. So then we went walking down the road about a mile down the road, and we come to this place, and I see this little monk guy. He was small Greek man, monk, and he's piling up bones. He's got the leg bone, the arm bone, and he's got the skull, and he's putting them on, in this thing, and he's categorizing them, and he's got a whole pile of bones that he's going to do that with. And my son George thought it was kind of humorous, actually. I was like, why are they doing that, Dad? Why is he doing that? I go, let's ask him why he's piling up the bones. Because in Mount Athos, they bury you for 7 years, I believe, and then they dig your bones up. And they see whether they're thumbs up or thumbs down. But I've heard that is one of the things that happens there, because they don't have that much land. So anyway, he explained this to me. He says, well, this monastery, this Skete, housed 4,000 Russian monks in the early 1920s. It was very large, kind of a booming. It was really doing well. And then Joseph Stalin got hold of found out that these guys, they had 4,000 monks, Russian monks, at this in this monastery, and he ordered them back to Russia, where he slaughtered them all. He killed every single one of them. And so others had come and gone and tried over time to fix it up, to get it moving, and they died. And so he was cataloging their bones, and so. Then the abbot took us, he showed us the reliquary where they had all the relics. They had a whole room bigger than this space here, full of relics of saints that we all know, like St. Andrew and St. Macarius and others like that. And there's at that time, there was like a church overhead, and they said it was the largest church in all of Mount Athos. So I thought, wow, but it looked really bad when we were there in '06. It didn't look very, appealing, to say the least. And I thought to myself, I said, do you have other monks with you? And he said, no. He says, but the Lord will take care of it. Don't worry, Father. He says, the Lord will take care of it. So then, it's 19 years later, I go back and I'm with these guys. And that trek to St. Andreas Skete, St. Andrew Skete, was a long trek at 5 o'clock and at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. And we went up, like I said, uphill always. And we get to it. And when I went with my sons, it didn't seem like a big uphill at all, but it did on that trip. So we go there, and we're going in. It's dark, and they have a service going on. And I look up, and I see all these incredible domes that weren't there the last time I was there. And all these beautiful buildings, renovated, completely renovated, brand new. And you walk into the church, and the church just like went up to the sky. It was so incredibly, the Pantocrator looking down. It was amazing. And there was a service going on there. And so we stayed for the service. We were there for the service in Greek. Didn't really know the Greek, but we were there saying our Jesus prayer and just biding our time, just drinking in the atmosphere, you might say, drinking it in. And so then afterward, we found that they had a little gift shop, and I went and I talked to one of the monks that had been there for a long time, and I said, I'm amazed at what you've done. He says, you guys have accomplished a lot in 20 years. I said, my gosh, you've rebuilt the entire monastery and then some. And he said, well, it's a labor of love, Father. He said, I just want you to know that. I said, well, what happened to the abbot? Is the abbot around? Maybe we could see him, because he was very nice to us 19 years ago. And they said, oh, he's in blessed memory now. I said, blessed memory? He said, yes, but he said, you see all the wonder that's happened here? They attribute it to him, to his prayer life, and how he brought people here, and people came in, people found him. And it was just like... he says, and they've rebuilt everything. And then they were building a whole new section for more monks that would come. And he told Anthony and I both that they did not get a lot of money there. Not in the least that they get a lot of money there. Because some of the monasteries like Vibrancy, which someone else may talk about, where the belt of the Mother of God is, they get tons of cash from Cyprus, for instance. And other monasteries get lots of cash from various islands in Greece. So this one was, because it wasn't originally a Greek monastery, it was Russian, did not have a lot of support, did not have a lot of financial support. So anyway, he was talking. Give me that. He was talking to me, and just talking, and sharing it with Anthony and I think Leo was there too. He was just talking, and I just said, I was just having this conversation with myself. I said, I can do something at least. That would be a blessing for this place. I said, I don't have thousands of dollars, so therefore I decided I would buy something. So I bought this cross. This is a blessing cross. It's from Jerusalem. And it's special to me because it came from that monastery where this saint. Now, we see Mother Victoria here. She's, God bless, a saint, I'm sure, just to say that, to realize sometimes in your life, you're walking around and you're talking to people, and you may have encountered someone you may be venerating their relics later on in life. You just don't know. Because that's the nature of this world. We don't see those that shine so bright, that the light that glows from them. We don't see them. But we see people sometimes, and we evaluate people in the wrong way. The size of their cars and the size of this or that or the other. But in this case, this man quietly, he was about that big, I'm telling you, he was a little guy. His name was Abbot Ephraim, like Father Ephraim. He was from Philadelphia, like from St. Anthony's. And so that was a really magic moment for me when I was there. I had others experiences, but I'm going to now turn this over to my dear friend, Stephen, the deacon, who had to actually share a room with me. And I felt bad for him the whole time. So.
All right. Hello, everybody. Deacon Stephen. And I also want to thank Mark Bushbacher for inviting me to this exceptional thing I didn't know if I'd ever get a chance to experience. And what I noticed is when we came together, should I be further back? Just right here. Okay. There was an instant brotherhood of us with a common goal of seeking God, and that was really nice just to have this commonality that was unique. And when I got back, I had all these people ask me, what was it like? What'd you do? And all this stuff. And most people weren't Orthodox. And so I tried to explain, we reverence relics, and I got to talk to monks. And they're looking at me like, well, didn't you see the ancient Greek ruins and stuff? And one of the things I realized is I kind of wanted to see that at first. And I got a great opportunity to spend a lot of time with Father John. And he's like, yeah, we don't need to see that. Come on, let's go to the monasteries. And I vaguely realized, we're really just kind of, those relics are kind of a memory of paganism that Orthodoxy overthrew many years ago. And Matter of fact, one of the churches, I think it was St. George, thank you. It's just way up high, and from there you can see the necropolis. And it just made me think on a physical way how much Christianity has overcome paganism. And so all those things really didn't mean much to me after that. I didn't have a need to go see any of those Greek ruins or anything. But when people asked me things, and what I realized is that what did it do to me? And I would say it softened my heart. And I would think of it like we got to go on this. First we got to go on this boat, and all these people, they're both well-meaning people. Everybody's well-meaning, but they really want to get on that boat to get on that island. And so all these nice Christians are all sitting there, kind of crowding in like this, and I'm kind of not straightforward, so I kind of got pushed in the back, and all of a sudden I'm realizing, I hope I get on the boat. But thank God, God let me on the boat. And one of the things I'm mixing up my stories here, but one thing I learned from Father John is it cracked me up. It reminded me of a scene from Mr. Bean. We were back at the airport, and we're trying to get in, and we're checking in, and then the airline says, no, your luggage is too heavy. Go wait in that line. And so we get in this line, and the line's like way back, and we've got about an hour and 15 minutes to get to the plane. And so we're standing there, and I explained to Father John, I don't know how much time we have. And so he just says, excuse me, what time do you get on the plane? And the person says, I got 2 hours. He's like, well, I only got an hour and a half. Can I step forward? And this conversation happened about 25 times. And it was amazing how they're like, yeah, go ahead. And I realized you have not because you asked not. He was just bold, and he was friendly and nice and just asked. And so I learned a lot from Father John. I appreciate it. I got to spend a lot of time with him. The other thing I got to think about was what was different about Mount Athos. And I think of it like when you're praying in front of your icons, and to me that's kind of like a hand warmer. It's just keeping you defrosted from the world. And then you go to your parish, and that's bigger, like a space heater that's just kind of keeping you and taking care of you. And then you go to beautiful places like this, which is like a bonfire. And what is it? It's people focused there, just devoted to God. And so the place is different. It feels different. It's just being immersed into the energies of God in a way. And so I could feel myself just getting the shields on my heart that are just around people and living where we live and all that. And when we finally walked into one monastery, and I was terrible about not learning the names of these monasteries because they were all in Greek. And I did a terrible job of, but I'd recommend this, by the way, if you go on a pilgrimage, is study a little bit about it before you go. Because I kept thinking, I'm going to be surprised by what I see. I don't want to have any expectations. But boy, I wish I would have known more about this monastery and what these relics had and everything there. But I went into one area, and we went ahead, and Serge, our tour guide, wanted to arrange this time where we can meet in this monastery. And the abbot really just didn't have time for us. He was just kind of pushing us off. And he said, what time? It's 3 o'clock. He said, yeah, 3 o'clock. And I was like, oh, I'm not very welcome there. So I wasn't looking really forward to going. But then finally that night we get to go in, and I saw a priest monk there, and I asked for his blessing. And he reached down and just gave me the biggest hug. And he just says, we're all equal among God. And he says, and he gave this biggest hug that I can't explain. It just kind of started to melt in me right away. And he wanted to know where we're from, and he was so blessed to think that somebody from California wanted to go to Greece. And I don't know why California is such a buzzword there, but everybody really loved it. And then I remember I got to stand before an icon that St. Paisios evidently spent a lot of time praying in front of. And in this place, they said they could hear a woman's voice throughout the monastery at times. And so I thought I'd spend some extra time there praying. And then we had a service, and we came back to that. I wanted to come back to that icon to say goodbye. And there was that priest monk again. And he just, as soon as I turned around, he came up and gave me the biggest hug that I can't explain. It just melted my heart. And he says, I'm going to pray for you, pray for us, pray for your monk John and this monastery. But it was so wholeheartedly. It's like coming across someone, a saint in a way. Just it was just transformational in my life. I just won't forget that. What else can I say? The other thing that stood out to me was getting a chance to go down the path to walk to the hut, basically where Saint Paisios lived, and just realizing that here I'm walking these steps that this saint walked many times every day. And we were disappointed to find out that we couldn't go and visit inside because the monk that was in there was sick. And so we had to be there, like, be very quiet, don't disturb him. So we got up to the gate, and there's this traditional little box there that was full of candy. Evidently, St. Paisios was very renowned in handing out candy. But we were standing there, and so the group decided to have a akathist to St. Paisios. But it was like, do it quietly. So we had these subdued voices. And it was just, it felt like St. Paisios was there just along with us. And it was just beautiful. And then the last thing I'd think about, but the thing in between that is, I think that we could say that every jurisdiction of Orthodoxy was represented in our group almost. I think when we talked about it, but where there's no division there, it was just all one. And that was beautiful. And wherever we went, we were just Orthodox. I mean, they kind of wanted to know where we were from and everything, but the important thing was that we were Orthodox. I even had a guy named George. Me and Nick both got, we were sitting eating, he bought us a beer each. And we went up and talked to him, and we just integrated with him a little bit, and I could see his lip just trembling there a little bit, because we just had this fellowship that we couldn't explain. So I have him on my prayer list, and priest monk John. I've got them on my prayer list to never forget to pray for them. But it was beautiful. I was trying to think of one more thing, and I forgot what I was going to say now. So what can I say about pilgrimages? It's the first one I ever really been on. I highly recommend it. And if you want to just take time out of your life like a vacation, but it's not for pleasure, it's for spiritual growth. If you get an opportunity to get to one, I would. All right. That's all I would say. Thank you. All right.
Okay. My name is Nicholas. I'm going to start with something kind of funny that I think Father John maybe didn't have time for, but it's one of my favorite stories from this trip. It's the Theotokos Tacoma. And one of our parish priests in San Diego refers to this as a miracle. He said it more than a couple times at this point. So on this trek between Kutlamush Monastery and the cell of St. Paisios, it was treacherous at a couple points, and there's a section of dirt trail, hairpins, very steep, and Anthony, myself, and Father John were running kind of a mule train trying to get up this section. And this is like the last day, and so it's a lot of walking, a lot of hiking. Everybody's tired. And we get to a certain point, maybe a third of the way up the hill. We have probably 3+ miles left. And Father John starts saying that he needs the Theotokos to send him a helicopter. But he says, well, maybe I'm not quite worthy of a helicopter, but it would be sure great if she could send me a Tacoma. And it was oddly specific, because it's one thing to say a car or a truck or a van, but very explicitly a Toyota Tacoma, which doesn't exist in Europe, right? But they do have an equivalent, and it's called the Hilux. We get to a certain point, and Father John turns and says, what would really inspire me is if I saw you run up this hill. Not really my game, not my bag. And he says, no, don't worry about it. You don't have to do it. And me being my vaguely goofy, sarcastic self say, oh, that's awful. I really wanted to do that. I would have loved to help you that way. And he turns at me, snaps, and says, you can't lie. And my wonderful godbrother decided to pile on. He said, that's right, you can't lie. Father John says, you have to obey your priest. You have to run up the hill. So I sprint up, and I am in hiking boots, and it's awful. Maybe 200 yards, very steep, whatever. I get to the top of a break point where it turns the other way, very out of breath, very sweaty. It's just not a good situation. Trying to catch my breath, and sure enough, I look down the road, and what comes around the bend? A Toyota Hilux. And it starts coming up towards me, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I just ran up this hill and now this thing's gonna go get them. Very selfish of me. I'm thinking, why can't I get a ride too? Sure enough, it goes down, stops, and I see them all climb on in. I think, well, that's the last I'm going to see of them until we get back to the guest house. So I might as well get going, and kept walking on. And from what I understand, you could probably talk a little bit more about this, but there's sort of taxi drivers on the mountain. It's not like a cab service, yellow cab, but for all intents and purposes, it's ride share. So he starts telling them about how the Mother of God told him to go there. It's a random spot. It's out of the way. It's not like a center point for anything. There's no reason to go to that specific place. So that was enjoyable for me, that I got to be at least a small part of it and witness it from afar, out of breath and tired and slightly frustrated. I also kind of wanted to expound on what Deacon Stephen was talking about. And there was this monk, Father John, at the Kulamush Monastery, and he's the one that gave us the tour when we got there. And you hear stories about how monks glow. You can see kind of the Holy Spirit emanate from them. And especially as a recent convert, I'm thinking, well, this is maybe more of a mindset or analogous maybe. But it's hard to really believe in something like that or think that it can be real without seeing it firsthand. And from the moment you walked in, the moment you met him, you see it. And that night was the vigil of the exaltation of the cross. And so I decided to sit in the room with the miracle icon. And I asked him if I could sit in the seat that St. Paisios would sit in. And he said yes. Gave me the blessing for it, said yes. So I sat in there for about 2 hours. And I was crying my eyes out like a baby. It was a very deeply moving experience. I got called to leave because there was some change in our schedule, so I got up to leave and was talking to Anthony and Leo and Simeon outside, and Father John comes running out of the church, and he says, wait, don't leave. I need 5 minutes. And he comes back, and he brings 4 prayer ropes and 4 vials of holy oil. And these prayer ropes have been blessed, he said, by every relic at the monastery as well as many others from around the island. So it's a very treasured possession that the 4 of us share. He's wearing it right there. So I went back in and I sat in the room, and he talked to me, and unbeknownst to me, there was a brewing disaster happening at home with my family that I really was not prepared for. And he started giving me very specific spiritual advice and practical advice. And I had no idea what he was talking about, because it just was about a situation I didn't know was happening. And sure enough, a couple days later, it starts to reveal itself, and I get home and I have to deal with it. And I'm thinking about how the options I can take to fix a situation, address it properly. And I come up with my own, and then I remember Father John had told me exactly what to do, and I did it, and this disaster resolved itself in a day. It just fixed itself, doing exactly what he told me to do. So on the premise of pilgrimages in general, I would say, I don't know how many of you here are recent converts, but if you are, or if you know anybody, beg them to take every opportunity possible to do something like this, because for me personally, it turned me from the believer into the faithful. And there's a meaningful difference there, because it's one thing to believe these things, to believe in the crucifixion and to believe in the Trinity and to believe in these Christian customs that we practice. But it's another thing to be meaningfully faithful in them. And like I said, especially for converts, that's something you can't trick yourself into. It's not something you can buy. It takes a while to happen naturally, I assume, if you let it have its due course. But a pilgrimage like this, or the Holy Land or anything else, accelerates it significantly.
It doesn't have to be long.
All right. Well,
Tell them who
I-
you are first.
thank you, Father. My name is Anthony. I am the opposite of Henry. I'm very quiet. I'm very shy. And everything I planned, I forgot. Okay. So initially, I was going to come, I was going to say stories and whatnot. And on the way up here, Henry was like, no, that's wrong. And I was like, are you sure? And we argued. And then I was saying another story. I was like, oh, no, that's wrong. So I came to a conclusion that I remember a lot of things wrong. So because of that, I'm not going to say the story, but more so kind of what it came out with Mount Athos. And I'm just very winging it here now because I didn't plan for this. I planned for the stories. So I would say, God has this funny ways of setting things up. So I didn't realize when I went to Mount Athos, the plan was nothing. It was just kind of, I'm just going to follow the leader. I didn't know Father John, but I had Father Paul, my godfather. I had, the tour guides are setting things up and whatnot. So I'm like, I'm just going to follow the leader. Whatever happens, happens. So I didn't go in with intention. I didn't go in like, I want to pray for certain people. I want to pray. Honestly, I didn't prepare at all. But once there, I stood in there actually. And I was thinking about it. I'm barely figuring it out as we speak right now. God set things. God set his things up. We were exiting the hotel that was going to take, so we can get onto the boat. We're there at night, and Father John's outside. I have my bag on and everything. I see Father John coming out with his bag, struggling. Of course, he's older, as young as he feels. But I'm looking. I'm like, is this disrespectful if I offer like carry his bag? Because my dad's 75, and anytime I try to carry a shovel, he's like, I got it. He doesn't want to help. So, I pushed myself. I offered to carry his bag, and from there, it was the story. From there, I was basically by his side 95% of the time. My bed was literally 3 feet away from his bed. We walked into where we were staying, and he's like, he's my associate. He's like, you come with me. He's like, you're sleeping there. So coming to it, none of this stuff is planned. I didn't know Father John. The first few days, I kind of, I want to get his blessing. He's an archpriest and everything, but I kind of ignored him. I don't know. But the two things that I realized that, God set up so I can learn. One thing that I can't say what goal it is. I don't tell people that goal, but I needed an answer for it. And by Father John, it's the only reason I figured out the answer for that thing. It completely made me realize, yes, this is what I want. And I apologize, I can't tell you guys, and it won't make sense fully because of it. But God set it up, and it's like I'm trying to get at, we just need to trust God. As I had no clue that answer was going to come. I had no clue Father John was going to be the reason that Mount Athos was Mount Athos for me. And then the other thing that I already knew of, I became Orthodox in, Henry, what year was it? Was it last year? It was last year, right? I became Orthodox last year. And yeah, I know February. I became Orthodox last year in February. And, compared to a lot of people that become Orthodox, to be honest, I'm slacking a lot. I'm not the best reader, so of course, knowledge and everything. Many people that have become Orthodox after me know a lot more than I do. But, because of that, I think I blame to that side. The Mother of God, I didn't treat her with the honor that she deserves. I didn't discredit her. I didn't say like the Protestants say, why do you look at the Mother of God as that? I still came in, I still venerate her, this and that, but I didn't have a love for the Mother of God. But going to Mount Athos, I'll say it like this. You step on Mount Athos. I don't know how you guys felt, but I wasn't hot. I was never cold. I was never concerned about anything. The bus rides were awful for me. I was car sick the entire time. I was dying. But at the same time, I never had a sorrow face. I was never truly complaining. I was just jokingly complaining. There's just pure no concern in my mind. It was like a little kid following their mom almost, you know. I think that's like the best analogy I can put. I had pure trust that nothing on this mountain is gonna happen that goes against certain things. And of course, you know, I was with Father John a lot. You know, I went to EMT school and stuff like that. So it's like there's like these thoughts of like certain health thoughts. You know, be careful and whatnot. But at the same time, I was like, nothing's gonna happen to Father John if the Mother of God does not allow it. And of course, God. You know, but like this is her mountain. You know, if she doesn't want it, it's not gonna happen. So why stress? You know, like for example, when we're going to St. Paisios' cell, Father John was talking about those vipers. Watch out for vipers. But at the same time, he was also like, no, St. Paisios guards this place well. Like, that's not going to happen. You know, I didn't think about the vipers. You know, the only time I was thinking about vipers is I want to take a picture of one. You know, that's the only time I was like, where's a viper? I want to find a viper, you know? But I say this because one of the memories I have most is actually the cats. There's this one orange cat, like right outside the guest house. And it came up to me, you know, I got it, I was petting it, you know. Henry took a lot of videos. And the video, you can hear, and I heard him in person too, but I kind of ignored Father John, to be honest. I wasn't thinking about it too much. But he kept saying, like, don't let the cat scratch you. He could have diseases and this and that. And I just kept thinking in my head, it's like this is a cat, and maybe I'm wrong for this, I'm not sure. But in my head, I was like, this is a cat on Mount Athos. This is, you know, the mountain of the Mother of God. If she wants me to get a disease because he's scratching me right now, then she can let me have the disease. You know, it was just that level of like childish like trust. You know, and then the cat scratched me a good amount. You know, you know, not a scratch. You know, but he was going like this. Like eventually, he turned around. He went like that, and I had little dots on my chest. And a little bit, I was like, I wonder if it's gonna get itchy. And it's like when I started thinking about it, I was like, it's a little itchy. But I was like, no. Only if she allows it, you know. But yeah, I don't know how else to put it. But 100%, I found the answer to that first thing. I can't say, sorry. And then I, without doubt, developed a love for the Mother of God purely because I went on this trip. If I never went to Mount Athos, that love would still be missing. And then, you know, I compare it best to, it's like, how I put it is, when I was younger, this one time I had an awful nightmares. I'm sure people have heard of it. You know, you see this a dark figure and you can't move. I think psychology has like a word for it or whatnot, you know. But I remember, I was screaming for help. You know, I was screaming, "Mommy, mommy, mommy," you know. And it's like, how I look at it is like, I was screaming for my mom and not my dad, even though my dad would destroy anything that would lay a finger on me. He would make it vanish the same way that God is always going to protect us. But at the same time, me as a kid, I'm calling for my mom. I've developed this thought. It's like, it's the same thing, you know. If right now, like, I'm nervous, but if I say, you know, Mother God, please help me, like, make me not nervous. Like, I know she's gonna comfort me, so I won't be as nervous, you know. Maybe I don't make sense. I don't know if it makes sense, you know.
Right. Yeah,
but
thank you.
yeah.
Good. All right, Simeon.
Hi, I'm Simeon Bushwalker. Good luck trying to spell that if you try. Father talks about being a great storyteller and being kind of an artist to paint the picture. I'm not an artist. At best, I draw stick figures for my niece, so we'll see where this goes. But they kind of gave you all the bread, the center of the bread, the warmth, the beauty of Mount Athos. And I'm going to talk about kind of the crust, which is there on every piece of bread. When you go on this trip, I was nervous. I thought, you know, it's a lot. It's 2 weeks. I was gone for 2 weeks. It's going to take a lot of time. I wanted to be here. I thought, oh, well, I'm going to get behind on life in kind of this race almost that I feel a part of with college and just all the things of growing up. And I'm glad I took this trip, because when you take this time out of your life to go and live there and stay there and visit these places, you realize that it's not so much of a race. It's, it's more of how we can grow closer to God. And it was the closest I've ever felt to God. And I've been raised in the Orthodox Church my whole life. I've gone to monasteries a couple times, and I thought for sure, it's going to be like every monastery trip. I'm going to go there. The food may not be great. There's going to be a lot of walking, a lot of praying. And when I was really there fully in mind and spirit and thought, and you don't think about those things. You only think about your love for Christ and your faith. And for the longest time, I was there at any monastery or church that I went to with my family, and it was my family's faith. We were all Orthodox. But being here and going to Monastery, hope I pronounced that right, I saw the year of St. John Chrysostom, the Incorrupt year. And that's real. That's there. And you can never unsee that. That was like a miracle that I got to witness. And we even saw the Incorrupt hand of Mary Magdalene at Simono Petra, I believe. And, those things, the skin, it's not the same as my skin here, but it's there. It's a real miracle. And being there made the faith so much more real to me. And I think before as Henry may have said, there was more of a belief, and then afterwards there was more of a faith. And before I believed in miracles, and now I have faith and can say it's my own faith and what I saw and laid witness to. And I would recommend it for everyone. It feels like time out of your life, time you're going to be spending not working, not doing school, not doing this or that. But it's not really that important afterwards. When you're there, you realize that faith and the love and the warmth you feel is much more important. And especially Father John was there, and Father John was there. And them two both showed so much warmth to all of us that, like Deacon Stephen talked about, Father John would come to you and he'd give you these hugs. It was a real hug. He'd wrap his arms all the way around you. I'm a pretty big guy, and he would just bear just all in there. He was ready for it. Every person there, our whole group, one by one, he just wanted to give everyone a hug. And that was the love, just the amount of love you felt almost emanating from him was beautiful. And it's worth every bit of time you feel you're abandoning your physical life to go there. And God calls us to do that. He calls us to leave behind our physical possessions, and man, I'm glad I did. And I hope all of you get to do that one day. And Father John, thank you for being there with us. Deacon Stephen, everyone on our tour group. My dad invited me on this. I was definitely nervous, to say the least, to go instead of starting college and right away. And I'm glad I don't care how much later I start. One semester will never be worth the 2 weeks I spent there. And thank you so much to everyone.
Well, you have a sense now, a little bit, of what Mount Athos is like. It isn't all the beautiful monasteries. It isn't all the painted icon ceilings and all the various things. We probably venerated 1 million relics. I don't know. There were so many. I saw 3 relics of St. John the Baptist. I'd never even seen one before. I didn't even know there were any around. And we saw the wrist of Mary Magdalene that actually gets warm sometimes. It actually gets warm. These were like amazing things. And of course, we took our prayer ropes off and we put them on the relics and we did all that. But I think that what these men have shared and my own sharing is that our hearts opened. You know, the love of God was shining in our hearts. And so we were able to, like if someone was not doing well, like me a lot, physically, these guys, Leo, Simeon, Anthony, and Nicholas here, they were like my guardian angels. They made sure that I didn't fall off the path going down to St. Paisios. And even without the truck, they still would have gotten me up to the top, no matter what. I wouldn't let them carry me, though. I said, you can't carry me. And I said, but I want you to know that we were on Mount Athos. And while we were there for 4.5 days, every second was put in motion to do something. We hated to sleep because we didn't want to lose any hours, any time. We wanted to just keep going and doing. And so we were up at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 2 in the morning, you name it, we were up. And the day didn't end until late, and then we got up again. And it was this kind of rigorous kind of like vibrancy, spiritual vibrancy that you have in your life, that you want to have in your life. But this is the kind of place that helps it come to life. Like the coming here. It's an incredible place. This is like an amazing monastery here. It's not Mount Athos because Mount Athos is for men. This is for women. But just to say, you come here once a month for a talk and a Vespers. That's a blessing, a chance to sort of, like you said, warm your heart. But I'm just telling you that although women can't go on Mount Athos, there are many. There's the island of Agina, where St. Nectarios is, and that island was was supposed to be like Mount Athos for women, and you can get to that one, but it's a pilgrimage and it's a journey. It's not just it's not the end. It's the process that goes in mind. So I just want to say how grateful I am that Mother Victoria asked me to do this. I was going, well, Deborah, I said, we'll give it a shot. We'll try. So I hope you've enjoyed our sharing, our camaraderie, our brotherhood, because we are brothers for life. As long as I'm around, these guys will be connected to me and I'll be connected to them. We helped each other. Wasn't all Father John, believe me. It was a lot of, he helped me in the middle of the night doing adjustments. My back went out and he went pop and it went in. We didn't know you had a doctor with us at the time. So anyway, I give glory to God for all things. Thank you all for being here. Any questions you have, we'd be more than happy to take a minute or two here. No questions. All right, no problem.
Father,
Yes.
there's a lot of cats on the island.
Is what?
A lot of cats on the island.
Lots of
Are there
cats.
any dogs?
No. No, I didn't see a dog. Only saw cats. Only male cats, not female cats. Only male cats.
Anybody else has any questions? I'll give them advice.
Father, what would it take to go to the top of Mount Athos?
What would it take?
What would it take?
Time. That's about all it would take, and the equipment or just something to do it. I mean, people do it. I know they do. People do climb it, but the main thing of climbing Mount Athos is getting through the monasteries and going to 2:30 in the morning services that you don't understand a word. There's only 2 monasteries that do it not in Greek, and one is St. Panteleimon, which is a Russian monastery, and the other one is the Hilandar. It's the only 2 I know of. I think there's a Romanian one as well, but none of them are in English. None of them are in English, anyway. Anybody else have a question? All right. Yeah, okay.
Are these pilgrimages, and I'm not asking for myself, obviously, are they ongoing? Are they?
Ongoing.
Oh,
There's always groups going. We are one of the few groups that actually wanted to tell you all about it, so we would inspire you to take pilgrimages. Our pilgrimage went to Mark, mine, and Simeon, and Leo, and Deacon Stephen. Ours started at Meteora, actually in Athens, but we went to Meteora, where we climbed to the very top. That was like an experience unto itself, because Leo was my man. He was like right behind me, and we'd go like 10 steps, and then a whole flock of people would come and say, Evelogite, which means Father bless. And I'd say, O Kyrios. And they would line up down the stairway. And so they would all go through, and then I would start, and I'd go about 20 more steps, and then another group would come through. Evelogite, O Kyrios. I mean, I did learn a little Greek there. And so it was like, you know, everywhere I went in Greece, people wanted a blessing, a priest blessing. Everywhere I went. There was no place, even Thessalonica, even Athens, you know, people would, you know, shop owners would come and say, Evelogite. It's just a thing that you can't experience in the United States. You cannot unless you come here. Or you come to a monastery that's in the United States. But other than that, you won't go to a place. You can't. Can you imagine going to the grocery store and having a line of people line up and go, Father bless? It wouldn't happen. And yet when I was in Russia in 1999, the guys who were the guards jumped out of their booths and said, Father bless, you know? So it's something about that we have to grow into as Americans. Yes? Did you raise your hand? Oh, okay. Go ahead. One other back there.
One other guy. Real inspiring trip. I missed it this year. Would you go again?
I'd go again for sure. Tomorrow. Can we do it tomorrow? I'm joking, but yeah, I would go again in a heartbeat. But I'd have to drag some of these guys with me, I think. So anyway. Yeah.
Count me in.
All right. Okay. All right, Mother. Does anybody else have a question out here?
Really, I just noticed the last point on your handout is about taking pilgrimages to monasteries in America. And there's a thing you can buy online called a pilgrimage passport, which has a list of pilgrimage sites in America. So that might be something people might be interested in to get ideas for other places to visit.
Well, we have in California, we have this monastery. We have the St. Anthony's. We have that's down in, well, that's actually in Arizona, but, we have Life-Giving Spring as well. We have Platina, which has been around forever, Father Seraphim Rose. We have St. John, Father Ignatius is the abbot there, and Calistoga, right? There's another one there, and St. Catherine's in Sonora. Temecula, we have the Father Dionisio. He's actually served in my church many times, just to say. Anyway, there are lots of places to go in California. This is more of a look at going someplace where it's very unique for your experience. And like he said, you go from belief to faith. I think that's what I experienced the first time I went, because the first time I went was in the middle of the summer. And Mount Athos has these tenacious bugs called deer flies. Have you ever seen a deer fly? Well, they're about this big. No, they're about this big, and that's not an exaggeration. And the poor mules that they have there, they will crawl up on them and bite them in the neck, and blood will come down. Well, they'll do the same to you. They do the same. And my poor son, George, was 11 at the time. He's like 5'11" or something, but he's big, but he was only 11. And he had never seen a deer fly in his life or anything like that would just attack him. And it was just so upsetting to him. We actually got lost. We didn't have a car, so we got lost. And it's kind of scary to get lost on Mount Athos, to tell you the truth. Like, we had no idea where we were going. So I said to him, George, I said, well, we're coming up to this place here, George. Should we go down? Should we go up? Should we stay our course? He says, well, you always say, Dad, Orthodoxy is the middle path. Let's take the middle path. And we went straight, and right over here was Constantinitu Monastery, where they are the only monastery in all of Mount Athos that had refrigerated water. And my son just like went, just poured he was like so hot because it was like 95 degrees and it was really hot. So anyway, that was his. And then so then the deer fly thing kept bothering him. He kept ooh. And so we got on this bus to go to the St. Athanasius, the laver, the great laver for the big feast. And you couldn't believe it, but one of those deer flies flew right where he was sitting. And it was like right on the window, right there. And he was like backing up, and I said, kill it. I said, just kill that thing. So I think he mustered all the courage he had. He went, bam! And that day, his life changed after that, because he was a little bit fearful at one point, and he stopped being fearful after that. So he killed that little wicked deer fly. So anyway, that was his 11-year-old experience. So anyway, all right, thank you.